in a direct confrontation that has sent shockwaves through NATO headquarters in Brussels. A lone American F-35 Lightning II pilot faced a nightmare scenario over the Persian Gulf that was never supposed to happen. It was 5:47 in the morning on February 24, 2026. Reaper 1, piloted by a veteran commander with over 200 combat missions, was returning to the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln after a reconnaissance flight along the Iranian coastline. Suddenly, the impossible occurred. The pilot's helmet-mounted display, a billion-dollar piece of technology designed to allow him to see through the very floor of his cockpit, began to flicker with static before going completely dark. For nearly 50 seconds, the world's most advanced stealth fighter was a $100 million ghost flying blind in the middle of a war zone. This terrifying failure occurred just as 6 Iranian F-4E Phantoms climbed from Tactical Fighter Base 6 outside Bushehr. NATO analysts who have reviewed the leaked telemetry are stunned because these Iranian jets are 60-year-old museum pieces from the era of the Vietnam War. They should have been invisible to the F-35's advanced radar. Yet for that brief frozen minute, the tables were turned. Intelligence reports now confirm that this was not a mechanical glitch. It was the first operational test of a Russian-made space-based electronic jamming system that specifically targets the communication links of fifth-generation aircraft. The video recorded from the cockpit's auxiliary camera, which has since been circulated among top NATO defense ministers, shows the pilot frantically trying to reboot his systems while the radar warning receivers screamed in a language they weren't programmed to understand. This event has shattered the long-standing Western belief in technological hegemony. As the United States and Israel continue their relentless bombardment of Tehran under Operation Epic Fury, the realization that Iran and its allies possess the capability to blind the eyes of the U.S. Air Force has changed the strategic calculus of the entire conflict. The Pentagon has been forced to rethink its entire air dominance doctrine as the second week of the war begins with more American hardware failing against supposedly obsolete adversaries. This was the moment NATO realized the war in the Middle East was no longer a contained regional cleanup, but a high-tech slaughterhouse where even the hunters can become the hunted. While the American pilot in the Ghost Killer video eventually managed to regain partial systems and eliminate all 6 Iranian Phantoms, the leaked footage revealed a deeper, more chilling vulnerability that has stunned NATO military observers. The blackout was a direct result of a strategic partnership where Russia is now sharing real-time space-based intelligence with Iran to locate and strike American targets across the Middle East. This electronic blind spot explains how 6 American service members were recently killed in a drone strike on a port facility in Kuwait, a makeshift base that was supposedly off the radar. The Pentagon's calculation that Operation Epic Fury would be a swift regime change similar to the capture of Maduro in Venezuela has proven to be a catastrophic miscalculation. Instead of a quick surrender, the United States has blundered into a war of attrition against Iran's mosaic defense. This decentralized military doctrine, developed after learning from the failures in Iraq and Afghanistan, divides the country into 31 autonomous units that operate independently of a central command. Even though the opening strike on February 28 successfully decapitated the Iranian leadership, killing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and 40 top commanders at a meeting on Pasteur Street, the regime's ability to retaliate remains largely intact. The death of the supreme leader has not sparked a revolution of democracy as the White House hoped. Rather, it has turned a divisive figure into a martyr, radicalizing the population and unifying the Shiite community against what they perceive as American and Israeli aggression. Trump's public demand for unconditional surrender has closed every diplomatic off-ramp, leaving the Middle East engulfed in a regional conflict that is now spilling across borders into Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. The second week of the war begins. Oil storage tanks are filling up and exports have ground to a halt because the Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed. NATO is now watching a global economic disaster unfold in real time. Realizing that the exquisite class of American weaponry can be countered by low-cost drones and high-level betrayal from within the region. The Iranian retaliation, named Operation True Promise, for it was not just a defensive reflex but a calculated demonstration of regional reach that left the most defended airspace on Earth vulnerable. In the first week alone, over 300 missiles and drones were launched at the United Arab Emirates, more than twice the number aimed at Israel. This barrage included an attack on the Al Dhafra Air Base and a direct drone hit on the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai, which shattered the illusion of Gulf safety. In Abu Dhabi, falling debris from an intercepted missile killed a Pakistani national. While Dubai International Airport, the world's busiest hub, was forced into an indefinite closure, snarling global logistics. This was the kinetic reality of what military analysts call a drizzle strategy, where Iran fires missiles at a slow, steady pace to force the United States and its allies to continuously expend multi-million-dollar interceptors against $20,000 drones. The mathematics of this war are becoming a fiscal nightmare for the Pentagon. In just the first 4 days, the campaign cost the United States nearly $11 billion, with $5.7 billion spent solely on missile interceptors like the Patriot and NOD systems. Despite these costs, 4 NOD systems, each valued at $1 billion, have already been destroyed by Iranian Shahed drones. The precision of these Iranian strikes is no accident. Confirmed reports reveal that Russia has been providing Iran with real-time targeting data using its space-based surveillance apparatus to track American warships and military installations. The result has been surgical hits on the U.S. naval base in Bahrain, the headquarters of the Fifth Fleet, and even the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. As oil prices surged 31% in a single week to over $90 a barrel, the economic foundation of the West began to buckle. The horror peaked when a U.S. or Israeli strike hit a girls' primary school in Minab, killing more than 150 children. Instead of crumbling, the Iranian population has hardened its resolve, rallying behind the regime in a wave of radicalization that threatens to turn the entire Middle East into a forever war that no one is prepared to win. The strategic landscape of the Middle East is shifting toward a point of no return, as reports from Tehran indicate a terminal breakdown in the Iranian military hierarchy. Unverified claims have surfaced suggesting that the commander of the Quds force, Ismail Qani, was secretly arrested and possibly executed by his own guards on charges of acting as a Mossad asset. This purge follows the uncanny sequence of assassinations that decapitated the axis of resistance, leading the remaining leadership to believe the supreme leader was backstabbed from within his most trusted inner circle. While the regime hunts for moles, the United States has accelerated the pace of Operation Epic Fury, having now hit over 3,000 targets and destroyed 43 Iranian warships. NATO officials are privately stunned by the findings of the leaked telemetry, which suggests that American air power is burning through munitions at a rate that is unsustainable. The Pentagon's urgent request to quadruple the production of advanced missiles exposes a critical vulnerability in the Western industrial base, which was already stretched thin by other global conflicts. In a move designed to show the world that the Islamic Republic will not yield to foreign pressure, the Assembly of Experts has officially named Mojtaba Khamenei as the new supreme leader. The selection of this hardline successor, who oversaw the massacre of 30,000 protesters in early January, is viewed as a direct message of defiance to President Trump. As the war enters its second week, the United States has committed a third supercarrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, to join the Abraham Lincoln and the Gerald R. Ford in one of the largest naval concentrations in modern history. This massive surge accounts for over a quarter of the entire United States carrier fleet, a mobilization that underscores the expectation of a prolonged conflict rather than a quick surgical strike. On the streets of Iran, the divide is deepening. While state media broadcasts government rallies, ordinary citizens are using encrypted networks to share the coordinates of secret military bases. effectively handing the United States military a roadmap to dismantle the remaining remnants of the regime. As the flames consume the Chakran oil depot south of the capital, a scene straight out of an apocalypse has descended upon the city of 17 million people. Major airstrikes targeting the pillars of the Iranian economy have ignited a humanitarian and environmental disaster that NATO observers are calling a nuclear winter without the radiation. Thick black smoke has turned day into night, mixing with rainfall to create a toxic black rain that is coating the streets and poisoning the air. While the White House celebrates the destruction of over 50% of Iran's energy supply, the human cost is becoming impossible to ignore. More than 1,000 civilians have already been killed in the relentless bombardment. And international aid agencies are warning that the exhaustion of desalination plants has left millions without drinking water. In Jerusalem, the shadow of war has forced a change in leadership routine that signals extreme vulnerability. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is now estimated to spend 90% of his time on a plane, serving as a ghost in the sky to avoid precision decapitation strikes that have already damaged his office complex. This instability is reflecting across the Atlantic as traditional alliances begin to fracture. President Trump has publicly lashed out at the British Prime Minister for a perceived lack of speed in sending aircraft carriers, mockingly telling the United Kingdom that their help is no longer needed after the war has already been won. However, the reality of the situation contradicts the boasting of the administration. Despite having 3 carrier strike groups in position, American bases in the region are being dismantled one by one. In Jordan, the crown jewel of American air defense, the $500 million THAAD radar system, was blinded and destroyed in a surgical Iranian strike. The war is no longer a localized operation. It has expanded into a global configuration of chaos. While American special forces conduct ground operations in Ecuador and sectarian issues explode between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the Middle East has become a logistical black hole. Airlines have suspended flights to the region indefinitely, and the global supply chain is facing a catastrophic collapse as insurance rates for tankers soar. The world is realizing that a war started by choice has become a war without a visible end, leaving everyone to wonder what peace even looks like in a region where every red line has been erased. The conflict in the Middle East has entered a stage where tactical victories are being overshadowed by a looming strategic disaster that threatens to bankrupt the West. As of today, the total cost of Operation Epic Fury has exceeded $100 billion, a staggering figure that the United States military must now justify to a skeptical Congress and an increasingly angry public. The death toll of American service members has risen to 7. And with 3 nuclear supercarriers now concentrated in a single theater, the risk of further loss is higher than it has been in decades. NATO defense ministers, having viewed the footage of the F-35 electronic blackout, are facing a terrifying new reality. The assumption that Western technology could operate with total impunity has been permanently shattered. The alliance now understands that the electronic warfare systems being tested by Russia over the Persian Gulf are capable of blinding even the most sophisticated sensors, turning a $100 million fighter into a helpless target. Geopolitically, the situation is a stalemate of unprecedented danger. Iran, under its new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has rejected every offer for a ceasefire, viewing the American request as a sign of weakness and desperation. The Iranian regime is now betting that global oil prices, which have surged past $93 a barrel, will eventually force Washington to withdraw as the economic pain becomes unbearable for ordinary citizens. The Strait of Hormuz remains inhibited, and the world's energy supply is hanging by a thread, while tankers refuse to sail without naval escorts that the United States is struggling to provide. The final analysis remains grim. While the United States and Israel have demonstrated the ability to decapitate a regime's leadership, they have failed to break the will of a nation that views this war as a struggle for its very survival. The F-35's incident was not just a technical failure, it was a warning. It signaled that the era of American military hegemony is facing its most serious challenge from a multipolar coalition that is willing to share intelligence and hardware to see the West bleed. As the third week of the war begins, the world is left with one question. Was this the masterstroke that secured the Middle East? Or was it the biggest mistake that led to the collapse of the Western order? The answer is being written in the smoke above Tehran and the silent screens of NATO's most advanced fighters.